2026. The time is 6 p.m. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Police Chief Henry Raines. If you please rise.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, Mayor Cheshire, Vice Mayor DeGrave, Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Goldberg, Commissioner Rayson.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay. First order of business, public hearing. Item A, Resolution 2026-039, readoption of proposed millage rate for fiscal year 2026-2027.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fruitland Park, Lake County, Florida, adopting a not to exceed millage rate of 3.9134, levying of ad valorem taxes for fiscal year 2026-2027, and setting the date, time, and place of public hearing on the budget for fiscal year 2026 through 2027, providing for repeal and providing for an effective date. The fiscal year 2026-2027 operating proposed millage rate of 3.9134 mils is a 0.84% increase to the current year rollback rate of 3.8808.
Anita, you just want to explain why we have to do this again?
Yes, the calculations that were input, into the Department of Revenue form, there was a discrepancy in one of the numbers. And so the numbers that we provided, the millage rate is not changing at all. What we proposed is the maximum. However, the percentage of increase and the rollback rate changed slightly. And so we're required by Florida law to adopt and re-adopt it, and we're repealing the prior ordinance or resolution that you approved.
And is that correct because we use the county's numbers?
Yeah, they should have matched the states, but they didn't, and it was on that, the prior year, line 7, the prior year final gross taxable, that was the number that we had overstated a little bit on the last.
Okay, so we took the county's number when we should use.
Should have used what was on the state side.
Okay, all right. Does anybody from the commission have any questions? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2026-039.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
This is a public hearing. If anybody from the public has any questions or comments on this resolution. Seeing none, hearing none, would you like to call roll, Glenn?
Yes, Vice Mayor DeGrave,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Rayson,
Yes.
Mayor Cheshire.
Yes. Motion carries. We will adjourn from our special meeting.
Mayor, if everybody could try to speak up, for some reason our microphones aren't projecting sound, but everything indicates that they're on and functional and the meeting is recording. People are having a hard time hearing you, Anita.
I could tell it wasn't transmitting.
I know that our IT people were here today and they were doing something in the closet, I don't know what, but it is recording, so they're picking something up.
Ms. Harf, you guys can hear us back there?
You
You're
now.
saying yes, you're saying no, you're saying maybe. I don't know if you want to move closer, if these aren't working, or I will try to. I will try
I'm
to.
afraid to mess with it during a meeting, but I'll
Okay,
just.
but we are recording now.
We are recording.
I will try to speak louder. If you can't hear something, just yell.
Thank you.
All right, Fruitland Park City Commission Budget Workshop Agenda. Today is Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. The time is 6:04 p.m. We did the pledge already, if we could have roll call one.
Yes, Mayor Cheshire,
I'm here.
Vice Mayor DeGrave,
Still here.
Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Goldberg,
Here.
Commissioner Rayson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. All right, discuss the 2026-27 proposed budget.
I was gonna start by just doing an overview of all 4 funds that we have, just over the revenues and expenses, and Kim, if you'll click for me. So first off are the total revenues, and that is the entire budget revenues of $20.2 million. You can see that general fund makes up 68% of total revenues, followed by the utility fund and then the community redevelopment agency. Click. Go ahead. Total expenditures citywide are budgeted at $19.6 million. The general fund makes up 70% of all expenditures throughout the city, followed by the utility fund at 13%. And this is a breakdown of what the total expenditures look like by category. You can see that overall, the city budget is made up by 42% personnel costs. That's gonna be salaries, benefits, insurance, things that are related to the employees. That is followed by the operating cost at 34% and then capital. Moving on to the general fund, you can see the total general fund revenues are projected to be $13.7 million. 54% of the total revenues in the general fund are taxes. Now, taxes is not just property taxes, that is sales tax, utility taxes, franchise fees, but that makes up 54% of all revenues within the general fund. You can see that we have 13% in transfers this year. Those are gonna be appropriations of fund balance that we transfer into the general fund. And then we have, charges for service at 11%, and the other revenues that we can talk about more when we get into the general fund. On to the expenditures, you can see that law enforcement is the largest expenditure that we have within the general fund. Their budget is at $4.4 million total, with $3.5 million of that being personnel related costs. Next. And this is the general fund broken down by category. You can see that the general fund is 55% personnel costs, whereas overall budget was 42%. General fund is 55%, and followed by operating costs of 37%. That's just the costs that are needed to run the departments for various supplies, contracts, etc. In the Community Redevelopment Agency, the revenues are $2.3 million. The largest revenue source is listed up here as intergovernmental. What that is the amount of property taxes that are transferred over from the city, the county, and the ambulance, MSTU. The city transfer from the general fund this year is this next year is projected to be just under $663,000 from the county, $842,000, and $77,000 from the ambulance, MSTU. And on the expense side, we are proposing $1.8 million be expense for the utility portion of the expansion of 466A. We're responsible for doing the utilities. We've been setting aside money for this. We've been accumulating reserves to pay for this cost. It's just unfortunate that it's continued to climb from when it was originally proposed a number of years ago. We also have some paving budgeted in here, and then some park projects that we'll cover when we get to the CRA. Capital projects funds is 95% is the surtax that we receive to pay for infrastructure and capital, with $60,000 in interest income. And then on the capital projects that the surtax pays for, you can see roads and streets is the largest expense that we have proposed, followed by law enforcement, which is their vehicles, and then some other smaller projects. And then on the utility fund revenues, you can see that water fees make up the largest portion of revenues in the utility fund at 61%, followed by the impact fees for sewer, and then sewer fees is 17%. I did include a 3% increase in water and sewer rates for next year. So just be aware of that as we go into the discussions on the revenues. And then on the expense side, you can see that water operating is the most costly expense that we have in the utility fund, followed by sewer operating costs. And that's just a quick overview of all the funds. And I'm gonna start with the general fund.
Right. Start like we do every year, and if people have questions, we should go on. Okay, general fund revenues. Anybody have questions on general fund revenues?
I'll make a couple of comments on there real quick.
Yes, that would be good.
So on the ad valorem taxes, you see we have them budgeted at $4.6 million next year. That's an increase in collection of 6.2%. Of that, $662,000 will be transferred over to the CRA. What's interesting this year, we had $73.5 million increase in property values and the assessed values. But of that $73.6 million, 47 million of that were new properties added to the tax rolls. So I thought that was pretty, that's 65% of the increase in our appraisals is due to new values that have been added to the tax rolls, leaving only 35% on the existing properties that have increased. So that is a note. I was gonna point out, under Lake County, you'll see $27,600 in revenues coming in. That is for Lake County Fire to reimburse us for utility costs since they've moved into the new building. That is included in the contract with the county that they will reimburse for those costs. You'll see that the fire assessment with the villages is 0. Remember that we discussed last meeting or meeting before last that the villages administration is moving to the county, so we no longer reflect that revenue. Solid waste disposal looks like it went up significantly compared to the current year budget. It is not that big of an increase, it's just right sizing the revenue. The current year budget for that revenue was understated, so it's getting it back in line with actuals. And then the library cafe, we talked about that. The only other thing of note that I wanna point out is on page 3 of 4. Under law enforcement funds, there's $100,000, and that's a grant that we're getting from the Department of Transportation. It is $80,000 for overtime and $20,000 for equipment.
Yes.
And so you'll see the expenses are reflected in the police department's budget, and this is the revenue that offsets those expenses. And one other thing, I'm sorry, I flipped the page and I saw, on page 4 of 4, under the revenues, you're going to see a number of transfers, where it's got transferred fund balance of $750,000. That's the reserve that we have allocated for doing road work in the villages. You'll see a transfer in a stormwater fund balance of $150,000. That's to pay for a number of drainage projects that we have included in the proposed budget. Then you have the building permit fee transfer, which is in there every year. And you have the transfer in cemetery fund balance, and that's the offset projects that we have proposed, some upgrades at the cemetery, which would fund those projects.
Chairman, as long as we're on this subject, with the dedicated road fund, there was some question as to where that ended up. We've identified that fund, once we transfer $750, what's the balance in that?
It'll be about $700,000. Well, but we will be putting some back in this year, so probably around $750 to $800 is what the ending balance would be.
And that's dedicated as a sinking fund.
For pay, yeah, for future paving.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions in this section, general fund revenues? No? All right. Legislative. Would you like to do the same thing, Karen?
Not a whole lot to say on this one. It's pretty, the one thing that has been removed from this budget is the P and Z stipends. That's no longer in the budget. Otherwise, it's a $8,500 decrease compared to the current year budget. There's nothing really to note in here.
Does anybody have any questions on legislative?
Could I just, as a clarification question, Karen, so since we moved to the magistrate for the planning and zoning, how is that paid for? Since we're not paying citizen committee members, how is the revenue raised to pay for the magistrate? Is it through the fees that the developers
Yes,
pay?
it's, yeah. And then we have it budgeted within the building and zoning department. We have the magistrate budgeted in there so that the fees are covering that cost.
Anybody else have any questions about legislative? Executive.
We have that budget compared to the current year adopted is proposed to be just under 37,000 less than the current year budget. That's gonna include a reduction in the amount that we pay to the records consultant that helps us with our records management. We reduced him coming in by 1 week. We also had a reduction to some professional books. Since John's leaving, we're not gonna be having book club anymore, so no. And then we had decrease in some supplies, and then we have some insurance that increased. And then salary and benefits, the reduction that you see in that is previously just my salary was split between the general fund and the utility fund, and I went ahead and split 100% of my cost between the general fund and utility fund. So that's really a shift in cost instead of an actual reduction. It's a reduction to the general fund, but you'll see that shift over into the utility fund in the water department.
Just out of curiosity, will these are these cloud and self-hosted subscription for 21?
That's our records management system, and that's what Matt from SMLE is helping us get set up, and it will eventually interface with our website so residents can access records without going through the clerk's
Oh,
office.
that's what that is, okay, all right. Anybody else have any questions on this group? Is that right? Okay. Finance.
All right, so finance department proposed budget compared to the current year adopted is a reduction of $124,000. That is mainly due to a contingency that was included in finance in the current year budget that is not planned for next year. So that reduced the budget by $114,000. We also have included, in all of the departments, there's included a 3% COLA and a 1% market, other than for the sworn personnel, they have a 5% step. So in personnel, that's included in all of the personnel numbers. But there is a reduction in personnel for finance, because we've taken the deputy finance director and budgeted it at the entry level instead of what the incumbent was making. With the intention, most likely, instead of hiring a deputy director, we will hire an accountant instead, which will be at a lower salary.
Anybody have questions on finance?
Yeah, I do have a question, and Karen and I have already discussed it briefly, but contingency account, so within this budget, there is no specific contingency account.
We don't have one in the general fund. Now, you'll notice when we get to the utility fund, we do have revenues over expenses. So in there, that would ultimately, instead of being an ending balance, we could plug that into contingency, which is nothing more than, we're planning on putting this into savings, but we do not have one in the general fund. Because the current ending balance is only $4,400, I think, revenues over expenses, $4,200.
All right, well, the previous years, we have specifically budgeted a contingency account, for the unexpected, and it was a modest amount, but it gave the city manager an opportunity to be able to dip into it when things are slightly more than our line item budgeted prediction. You're comfortable enough going into next year without one?
I am. Actually, we did not have revenues high enough to be able to provide for a contingency this year. If you guys have some areas that you would like to reduce, then that money that we reduce, I would then put into a contingency.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions on finance? Legal.
Slight increase, that's for the labor attorney that we have.
Anybody have any questions on legal? Other governmental, other general governmental.
Other general governmental shows an increase of $65,000 for the proposed budget. They included in there, last year at this time, we added an IT analyst position to the budget. And while I would absolutely love to have an IT person on staff so that we had someone here to respond immediately when we have issues, I don't think that that's the wisest use of money at this point in time. We have a contract with MMD. They do a good job for us. They're not here all the time, but they do a good job for us. They are responsive. And so I would recommend, let's just continue with the contract with
What's the
MMD.
scope of service that they provide?
I'm sorry?
What's the scope of service
website if it's a technical issue, if we have email issues, I mean, they're.
Network security.
Network security, they do our patches on our servers.
Sieges.
See, the Sieges, they're also, we now have a separate contract with them so that they can do work on the PD, computers, cause they have to be Sieges compliant, and they meet those requirements.
Okay, so we have enough money to pay them another year.
Yeah, we've got that budgeted.
Good.
We did that budgeted. Here you see that we have some, facility repairs and maintenance included in this budget. We're looking at, upgrading the door access control at City Hall. What we have is very old and it's at end of life. It's just a matter of time before it stops working. So we would like to upgrade to get a new door access system for City Hall. That's included in here. And then we've got, tuition reimbursement, we've increased a little bit for next year. We have a couple of employees that are interested, in college. And we have a little bit of increase in the insurance.
Does anybody have any questions for everyone? Law enforcement.
Yeah, let Henry get up and explain that. The increase in the budget between the proposed budget and the current year adopted is $325,000. A big chunk of that is gonna be on the salaries and benefits. So we do have the 5% step included for all of the sworn personnel, and then 3% COLA and 1% merit for all other employees. Where you see it has increased independent healthcare, it's aligning the budget with what the actuals are. It's not that their costs have gone up $51,000, it's just making the budget reflect what the actuals are. And then Henry can talk to you about the contractual service, which is gonna be related to the building. And then property insurance, of course, has gone up because of the new building. And then Henry will also talk about the equipment that we have budgeted for next year. That's increasing the budget by $55,000.
So good evening. First, if you guys would go to page 102, you would see now that we have a new building, so we have the budget for facility repairs and maintenance, so you're gonna see an increase there. That's kind of the cost of having your own building. Our warranty goes out in March, so we just rather be on the safe end. I don't think we're gonna need that $15,000, but just in case, and you guys will see that going forward.
So Craig, just a quick question. Before March, you're gonna have a punch list of things that need to be fixed, or have somebody go through and.
Correct, so I currently have 2 items right now that I need to have addressed, and once they are complete, we can reconcile the project and do our ribbon cutting ceremony. Yes. Page 2 of 2, you will see an increase here. So with the economy the way it is, if you go to the top of the page, you'll see the fuel. And we're being modest here, $120,000 with a difference of $4,000 in fuel. I'm currently averaging right now with these prices almost $11,000 a month. But Karen and I both agree that we probably will see it trend down a little bit, as we get into the fiscal year. So we should be okay there. The salary stuff, Karen explained, that we are going to the next step, 5% pay increase across the board. And you will see down there that I have a vacant police officer position. That was a sergeant that we just left kind of in limbo. And we're gonna move that position via position control back from a sergeant to a police officer back on the road when we're ready for it, which is a savings of $15,000. Keep going, here we are in bonuses, uniforms, sorry. I mean, if you guys want to ask me questions about uniforms, I'll be more than happy. Okay, so page 6 of 9, so vet services for dogs. Now we have a third dog, so you'll see an increase there. So if you go down to the center of the page, professional fees, you'll see vet services for 3 dogs. Actually, I skipped one, so Cavanta, so this is our evidence destruction. So we need to purge our evidence twice a year, and it's roughly about $400 every time we purge our evidence. So you'll see a slight increase there. I think normally it was 600, but we went ahead and budgeted for 800. Logistically, I might be able to get away with one purge this year, but we budgeted for two just in case. So our new facility, if you come down to contractual services, you're gonna see some increases here. Copiers and printers, we have 3 copiers and printers in the new facility, so you'll see an increase there, it's $3,400. Flock LPRs, currently we have 1 camera system that is up, but the maintenance and the contractual service agreement is $15,000 annually. The initial push for the installation of the cameras, all that came on the grant, and going forward, we will have to pay the $15,000 yearly. So I will say this, currently we have 1 up, every ingress and egress in the city is covered under LPR. I know there's a lot of controversy right now with flock cameras, but I can assure you that we are not misusing our flock cameras. In addition to that, we are solving a lot of crimes and getting a lot of people off of our streets. Continuing to go down, so pad tracks. So pad tracks is our new evidence software. You'll see an additional increase here of $4,500. So this is basically it allows us to chip every piece of evidence that we have over there in our police department. So if a piece of evidence walks away or moves, it is tracked. So we will get an alert on our cell phones. Also, it allows us to do an evidence inventory within minutes, right? So say we have a box the size of this table, I don't have to have somebody in evidence go through every box until we can say, okay, it's all present and accounted for. They just scan the box and it'll say, hey, all your items are present and accounted for. It's kind of the new system, per the state attorney's office, everybody's going to it. Currently, we have about 5,000 pieces of evidence. That's with purging twice a year, so it's kind of a necessity. Spillman host. So you'll see $10,714 budgeted here, but I can tell you this. So what happened here was we got an invoice that was 3 years behind. So we paid 1 year, but we still owe 2. So cut that in half and it will be our annual salary, our annual contract going forward. But we owe the county 2 payments this fiscal year. They said, hey, just wait till October 1, we'll allow you to make 2 payments. I don't know how it got skipped or missed, but that's what you see there. That's a double payment that we have to make this year. If you come down to Star Chase, so this is our GPS system. So Star Chase is another contractual agreement. So this is the GPS tracking system that you'll see on a lot of our specialty unit cars. So this is the system that shoots the dart and allows us to get our drone up and track the vehicle without us actually physically chasing the car. So it's just modern technology with 21st century policing. After that, you'll see TKE elevator services. This is another huge increase of having a new building. That contract is $9,000 a year for having an elevator. They come out, they service it, if anything happens, if they're just a phone call and they're here. We haven't had to use them yet. They are a union. Sometimes they are hard to get a hold of, but without the contractual agreement for the preventative maintenance, we don't have anybody within the city that can handle it. Communications, if you come down to Summit Broadband here, Karen stated this in the summary, so we did have to budget for our own internet. It's $20,400 a year to have our own internet now that we're in our own separate entity across the way. Currently, we do not have redundancy internet, so if that internet goes down, the whole city goes down. Obviously, they've made huge leaps and bounds for that, but that is the only internet provider, and they provide the entire city. Really no change here. If you go down to electric, water, Karen and I have come to the conclusion that the county does owe us some monies for utilities. It's in their contract that they have to give back to the city, so hopefully we can generate some revenue, because they do owe us a couple months, the back pay that they owe us. If you come down here to equipment purchases, so here you will see some additions that you probably didn't see from last year. Now we have a drone unit, so Axon has the market saturated. So in addition to our body cameras and our in-car cameras, we have to have an additional service contract for the drone. This is very important. It has to be through Axon. It's one of the few companies that has the proprietary technology to make sure that we're not violating someone's Fourth Amendment right. So it's very, very important. I budgeted for laptops, so you'll see a $5,000 expense there. Keep in mind, you'll see down at the bottom of page 8 of 9. So we are only contracted for body cameras and dash cameras for 24 police officers. If our department ever grows past 24 officers, you will see an additional $30,832 increase for that contractual agreement. Right now, we're good. So we're able to use like my body camera and some of the detectives' body cameras and tasers if we do have one go down. But currently, we are maxed out with body cameras and tasers. So you will see over here to the left, I actually had Officer Meyer bring this in here, and you will see this long itemized list of equipment. So we had 2 incidents this year where we had to make entry, shots fired call, where people that were actively firing firearms. And as you can see, we have hand-me-downs from Lady Lake. And I'm not trying to preach or get it on my soliloquy here, but if it's not good enough for Lady Lake, it should not be good enough for us. So, and these are the costs that's associated with it. And this is just outfitting a 4 or 5-man team. I believe if you're gonna make entry, when there's somebody that's firing a pistol or a rifle, especially something that's shooting 1,200 feet per second, this is not the gear. And sometimes in both these incidents, it's not like we could just say, hey, sheriff's office, you can borrow your SWAT team. You don't have time for that. And they can always say no. Right? So it's imperative that we have the equipment to make entry when we need to. That's all I got. Any questions? Sorry.
Henry, you mentioned that Cohata evidence destruction, is that incineration at the plant?
Yes. Yes.
Just as a side note, we can change that. It's not Cohata, now it's all world.
All world. Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
Page 6.
This isn't specifically for Henry, but Summit. Summit seems to be, we discussed it going up in price. So when we first got Summit, I don't remember them being this expensive.
I don't know that they've actually gone up. I know on the city hall side, they haven't necessarily gone up. It was just the fact we had duplicated the same service for the PD since they moved into that new building.
Have we been happy with them, or we've been?
Not lately, no. They were doing well for a while. We had issues, they were doing well for a while, and then we've had like 2 or 3 outages in the last couple of months.
I think we had one yesterday.
We did have one yesterday, and unfortunately, when they go out, we lose phones, we lose the ability to take, all of our software is hosted, so we can't do business, we don't have phone service. We've talked about bringing redundant service to City Hall with a different company. We just have not moved forward. We even talked about doing, what is that Elon Musk thing?
Starlink.
Starlink. We've even talked about doing Starlink, something to have redundancy at City Hall or at the police department too.
Because once we lose internet, then we also lose our CAD and our MDTs and our vehicles, and it also, then you're talking about an officer safety issue. So, we're good now, but at some point, I would suggest that we look into a redundancy.
Sounds like that should be a priority.
Yeah.
If we're at the mercy of one company for the important operations, I would think redundancy would be a priority.
And see which is most cost effective or which works best. I mean, Starlink makes some sort of sense if you're going by satellite, so you don't buy people with fiber optic. Anybody else have any questions for Henry or Karen or law enforcement? No?
Good job.
Thank you.
Fire. Right?
Nothing there.
Building and facilities.
You see that there's a pretty substantial decrease in the proposed budget for building building and zoning, and that is really related to the cost associated with development activity, hiring the consultants to do what they do for development, our building inspector, and then all the other consultants that have to do with new development. We anticipate development slowing down this last surge. We don't have a lot backed up in the pipeline, so that's what's being reflected here.
The large majority of building and zoning is funded through building grants.
Correct.
So if you're wrong, and we see a surge, it's an in and out.
Yeah,
Higher
it was-
revenue, higher expenditures.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions about building and zoning? No? Solid waste.
That's just, the budget and solid waste just look like it's going up $137,000. That's just to right-size the budget for what we're currently collecting and anticipating they will probably do a COLA or cost of living adjustment that they do each year with the contract and reflecting that in the budget.
do you know where we are with the contract? Mayor, did we do a 5-year extension?
You do 5 or 3.
I thought we did 5, and I believe we're probably midway now into that. The only reason I bring it up is it's not a quick, if we go back into the marketplace to bid that, it takes some time. Take a look at the expiration date on that, and if we're 2 years remaining, it's, put it on your radar.
Okay.
You guys have any questions about solid waste? Anybody? Stormwater?
Alright, stormwater. The recent deluge rains that we've had have really highlighted some drainage issues that we have within the city. And so we've included some projects for next year to help address some of those drainage issues. The biggest one, where you see that we have $180,000 budgeted for stormwater system repairs. The majority of that is looking at Sunset Way. We have a significant flooding issue on Sunset Way where we get a lot of rain, because it's an unimproved street, it's on a hill, and it's flooding, one house in particular, and it's coming off of our public roadway, so we have to address that. And then we have other smaller projects throughout the city that Public Works would like to address, not to the degree that of Sunset Way. Things that could be done to definitely help with the drainage issues that we have. You saw on the revenues in the general fund, we had an appropriation of fund balance. We have, reserves out there for stormwater projects, and so using some of the reserves to help pay for these projects.
This,
Yeah, okay.
this does not exhaust that reserve, does it?
It does not.
And Sunset Way's been going on for years and years.
Yeah, we keep talking about it, nothing. Moving forward.
Hopefully we'll get to him, Rob, if you wanna talk about it. Hopefully we can do something to help out there. It's gonna be a challenge. Absolutely.
Yeah, basically Sunset Way, I'm sure you're aware, we had those couple rains, it was about 5 inches in an hour. There's one particular house, about a 100-year-old house down there, got flooded out. It is built in the worst possible place right there, right at the bottom of the hill. We tried to do some temporary stuff to kind of shore it up so they don't, doesn't happen to them again. But I really think we need to look at putting some sort of drainage in there, probably I would personally would like to get that whole road surveyed, let half engineering start looking at it, see what we can do with it. Last year we acquired some more right of way through there, we got 20 feet now. It's not optimal, but, you know, might give us some options to do something down there, some sort of drainage swales. I talked with the homeowner there, we would have to get some sort of drainage easement to get it from where we collect that down to the lake. So that's the type of stuff I'd like to have engineering working on, you know, see if we can alleviate that problem.
Okay. By the time we get that going, we do talk about that each year, and that seems to make no progress.
Anybody else have any questions on stormwater? Road
see that the proposed budget is $740,000 higher than the current year adopted, and that is due to including a project to start microsurfacing several of the roads out in the villages, being Drake, Moyer Loop, and Conservation Trail. We were headed the micropaving way, but we might look at some other options. We're not sure if micropaving is gonna be the right product out there.
Yeah, so we budgeted the money to do micropaving, we've talked about in the past out there. We just did a project recently, parts of it turned out okay. I would say they're good, I'm a little hesitant, we did the wing spray, it turned out fantastic, I think. But we also did, Chelsea's out there, and there's a lot of, where people back their cars in and out, you can still see the tire marks from when they did that. I was told it would go away, I don't know if it will, we're gonna drive out there, go look at it. If it doesn't, we may look at something else out there. The cost of, putting traditional pavement out there is gonna be really expensive, so we've gotta build the entire thing, we gotta get built out there, it's a lot more expensive than doing the roads in town, we just kinda overlay it. So micropaving was a good cost savings for that, cause you don't have to do that, but we might look at some sort of sealing, some other different ways of doing that.
So have you done a comparison, the $750 for those given roads versus a full mill overlay?
I know just an overlay, per mile, it was, I think, $130,000 a mile for the micropaving. It was about almost $190 to do just traditional paving overlay, but now you've added milling on top of that. So we're probably looking at on about 80,000 more a mile probably.
At the same time, we had this discussion when we did micropaving, and it wasn't that much. It was about the middle, we were like, well, maybe we should just pave, or should we try?
Yeah, we had the discussion, and I guess, based on doing those two, wing spread and Chelsea run, my understanding is wing spread was in pretty good shape. So it accepted the new topping, where the other one, the road was perhaps not.
No, they were both in pretty decent shape. The thing with micropaving, you wanna get the micropaving down before you have structural problems.
Yeah, right.
Basically, it's putting another wearing surface on top of it, so water, stuff like that doesn't penetrate in it. We went out before we did that, we went out and looked at a couple of projects. One of them looked really nice, the other one was an old, probably what you're referring to, maybe a conversation with that. Was an old trailer park type neighborhood, but road was pretty beat up. It didn't work well at all in that type of scenario. So you really wanna put it on a road that's still in decent shape, but has age to it, but still structurally sound, which is kind of what the villages is.
Wing spread has a lot less traffic than Chelsea's Run, I would assume, as long as like 80 houses.
Yeah, it's more, out in Chelsea's, it's more, more driveways, they're more compact, so people are making tighter turns in and out. I'm gonna take care of it, we're gonna look at it and, kind of see, it's not bad, but, traditional paving, you do it, you get those marks where they disappear. They don't seem to be disappearing on this project.
I think you're on the same wavelength that we're on, where if it's not gonna, nobody's $750,000 on micropaving if we don't think it's gonna.
Right.
Yeah.
If for any reason though, we don't do that, so we say we are undecided for the next budget year, this $750 simply stays in the sinking fund
Yeah.
for future decision.
Yes, yeah, we can do that. And, another thing we may wanna look at is those roads that are proposed, there's not houses really attached to those, so you're not gonna have kind of that issue of people pulling in and out, turning their tires on it, usually they're going. What happens when the car's sitting stationary and they turn their tires is what does it. If you're turning onto a road with speed, you don't have those issues. So it may work on the main roads out there, and maybe do something different within the actual communities part of it, so.
What I've seen in another neighborhood is, one of the keys is keeping traffic off until it's completely dry.
Yeah.
People wanna get back to their house, they go on it too soon, and it.
Yeah, and it's hard to do that, I know out in Winsburg, we have one area, somebody drove right through it right after they did it, and then they had to come back and redo it.
Yeah.
additional paving, they roll it, as soon as they roll it, I mean, you're pretty good. This stuff has to sit up for a certain amount of time before, so. Has its challenges, but it is a lot cheaper.
Any questions?
Thank you, Rob.
One other question that was final round, related to the budget, street signs going into Pine Hill. Pine
Yes, they're
Ridge.
ordered and being made right now.
Okay,
So, we have a list of all the ones in the villages, there's some that have deteriorated out there, those are fine. We have a list of all that, so we can get them started.
think we'll see some new ones going in by August, by the end of this month.
Maybe. Depending how long it takes them to get it. They told me I'd have them within a month, but I ordered them a couple weeks ago, so, possibly, not gonna promise.
Appreciate your commitment to it.
All right, library.
Okay, in the library, you see there is a reduction between the proposed compared to the adopted of $112,000. We had some personnel changes in there. We eliminated the library director position, which was a cut to the budget, but then we added 50% of the community services director. And then we also eliminated a part-time library aide that, with the changes to the cafe, that we did not need, that position, so we also eliminated that. And that's those are the big reductions in that budget.
I have a question about the cafe.
So do I.
Okay, so we're spending way too much money operating a cafe when we're not getting much return for the cafe. I personally think it's time we go back to either having somebody else run a cafe, an outside service, having volunteers, maybe friends of the library coming and they volunteer and they run the cafe and donate their money to the cafe, or you take the cafe and you turn it into another, you just close the cafe. But that's mine.
I had thought about that as well. We tried to do some rebranding, trying to make sure that people come to the cafe, trying to attract a different clientele of people to come to the cafe, but without serving the food, we have seen a major decrease. We've tried to push those people into programming and see if we could get some programming going in the cafe. We haven't had a whole lot of time to see the results of that. But I'm in agreement, it is a different feel in there now, and it's not attracting the same people that it was before. So I have looked at that space and thought about like, what else can we do with that space? Can we have that ran by volunteers, or can we make it, because right now it's more like snacks and drinks and that kind of thing. Can we do that? Can we use it as a different programming space, since our programming is through the roof? Those rooms are full all day long for programming, so could it be used as a program space? Those are things I have thought of as well.
Is there something that when we come back, you guys could talk and come back with another proposal as opposed to what's in the budget?
We can do that. You wanna have the change be before we come back in September for the hearing?
I had good feedback when we were serving food, and we ran into a wrinkle with that. Prior to that, we had tried to do a contract, and that was a bit of a struggle to get a restaurateur in to operate that.
I believe like 5 or 6 years ago it was that, correct?
It started when the building was built, that was kind of the vision, is someone would, under a contract, take that space and
Yeah.
provide food. We went through a number of iterations, we tried to get a contract, we did it on our own. When we were doing it on our own, I understand we had that wrinkle, but that was the feedback time in which people were making that a destination.
Right.
Meet me there for lunch
Right.
and, like food. So I think that works, if we can figure out how to do it, how to duplicate it correctly under all the rules and regs and.
You need to renovate, you need hoods. you
It's
need-
about, I did look into that as well, so if you're talking about grease traps, and I went through Rob with a little bit of this as well, and Michael too. If you're looking at grease traps and you're looking at the ventilation that's required for that to be able to cook, you're looking anywhere from 50 to 80,000, I believe, is kind of where we were. And that was just a preliminary, just kind of looking at it, so it is quite a cost to get back and running the way that it was with cooking.
I think anything we need to do like this, whether it's the cafe, the pool, or you go into regular programs, is we need to start thinking, and the directors need to start thinking of this as a business. If you're gonna run the cafe, it needs to be in the black. If you're gonna run the pool needs to be closer to the black. If you're gonna have a program for the rec department, and we're doing camping at the, at one of the fields, you need to make sure that we're making enough money to cover. If we're doing summer camp for kids, we need to make sure we have enough to cover. I mean, coming into this new, budget phase with the state, we need to make sure these things are paying for themselves, these programs. Spending another $50,000 or $80,000 on a cafe, is that gonna bring enough money, and is that really gonna bring the money in to still make it profitable, or maybe even break even, or close to break even?
Well, the hard part is we can't run it like a business, obviously, we want to run in the black.
Oh, not like a business, but
If it doesn't
like
work,
it
we
needs to
can't
be.
sell it to somebody
Yeah,
else who can make it work, we're stuck with that building, we're stuck with the investment, and it's very hard to predict what model will work.
Well, it sounds like programs work, it sounds like the library's full right now, you don't have enough space, and before Joanne passed, she was talking about expanding the library, cause there's not enough room, so using that space for programs sounds like the best.
And even rentals, for like outside agencies that wanna come in and we have so many HOAs that wanna use our spaces to have their meetings. We have, outside agencies that wanna come in and host meetings or programs in there, and we're full all the you can walk in there at any time, our rooms are full.
I mean,
They're
you have
always
to
full.
tell us too, I'm, in the library, maybe every couple months? So
Yeah.
you know better, and your library, and your staff knows better what you think would work best there.
Right.
Whether it is doing the full cafe, and hey, it's gonna come close, or it's better for programming, we need to use your expertise, or Karen, tell us what you think is the best use for that space.
Right. My heart is to say I want the cafe, because of the people that are in the cafe, but I am aware that it's not running like it did before when we're fully cooking. And we've tried to get different people in there, we've tried to get a younger crew in there, we've tried to make it an internet cafe, we've tried some different branding. We haven't had a lot of time to see if that's gonna, come to fruition, but we've been working on programming right now, is kind of the shift we've done, is we're trying to do, we have a stain page, a book club in there, it's just kind of the new trend out there are these pop-up cafes. There's a Mad Hatter Cafe and Traveris, that's the trend. So we're trying to make these pop-up events in there, and oh yeah, while you're here watching this Hallmark movie with this event, that you're ordering this drink or you're getting this snack. So those are the kind of branding things I've been working towards, but like I said, we've only had a couple of months of trying that out. We did do a Hallmark movie, and we had 8 people in there, they all ordered drinks and dessert and watched the movie. So those are kind of the things we're trying to trend towards, and it's more on a programming side. It just so happens we have drinks and some snacks in there as well.
Well, I agree with you, Mayor, I think we need to follow some advice, it sounds like you're experimenting with things.
Yes.
I'm not married to any particular idea, so,
Okay.
I guess we leave the budget the way it is, and, putting your finger on the pulse of what that room is best going to be used for, and let us know.
Okay.
Come back,
Okay.
I mean, I like before the budget's set, if you're going to go and change, have it in the budget, so we can roll back a little bit. Anybody else have any questions on libraries? My next favorite topic, the swimming pool.
These pretty much, there's a slight decrease in the proposed budget for the pool. The mayor and I had a conversation about the pool that, we probably need to look at how we run the pool. Does it need to be a year-round operation like it currently is? Barbara's gonna pull some stats so we can see the usage.
That's another area in which I've been working towards, like, what does this look like for the city? So there were a lot of times where we were closing down at 5 o'clock when I first got there, people aren't even off work then, so I'm trying to extend times to look different so that people who work can bring their children in the evening. I know if I have toddlers, I'm not gonna get home from work, get them in a bathing suit, run them to the pool, by the time I get there, I've got 1 hour to swim. So we're trying to move the time frames. There is a period of time in the winter where it is closed. It's a December, January, February, but it's not a consistent 3-month period of time. I have pulled some stats, I don't wanna say them off the top of my head, cause I don't remember them, but I can get that to you. Of course, we're more busy in the summer. We have daycares that are in there in the summer, we have our summer camp program that goes in the summer, and of course, our teachers are off in the summer, so they're bringing their kids in the summer, so summer does look great for us. Swim classes are pretty strong, but that open swim period, which is what I feel a community pool pool should be is not our strongest suit. I think it's because of the scheduling time. So I've been playing with hours. A new one went out just a couple months ago, actually, coming up into the fall, how it will be up until 7 o'clock most nights of the week, so more people can get there after work and get their kiddos there.
So I never expect the pool to make money, but
Right.
unless I'm wrong, when I look at the revenue, we brought in about $30,000 for the pool. We spent $300,000, we're spending $300,000 for the pool.
Yes.
That's 10 to 1, that's horrible. And then when I look, we're paying $95,000 to have the pool managed, it's a pool. It's ridiculous. I mean, I understand you're new, I understand you just took over, I understand there's a lot on your plate, you're running both. But to me, something definitely needs to change with this, and the budget needs to change before it comes back to us. And one, I love the pool. Every time I pass by, the pool's crowded. People are there, kids are having fun. It's a good portion of the community, but we need to do it smarter. Something else has to be done. I think when we sat there and put the heater in, we're like, let's open all year. You know, is that part of it, where we're just paying a lot more, or we're just open during the summer, you got a part-time manager, you know, are people coming the rest of the year? Are you just open weekend? I mean, something just, yeah, something else, at least to me, needs to be.
Yeah, chemical prices have really went up too. That's something we're struggling with right now too, is the price of the chemicals, and the more people in the pool, the more chemical, it's.
So, I mean, you need to figure something, at least to do something else to the pool. And again, too, it's with the state wanting to do what the states want to do with our budget, this is one of the spots where it's, all right, let's tighten it up somewhere. You know, and unfortunately, it's falling to you. Sorry. But, yeah, so, that's my.
You know, I don't disagree with you as far as taking a real fresh look at it and making sure that we're getting the biggest bang for the buck. Schools notorious for sucking taxpayer money into keeping them open. They always will be. As soon as you try and charge more, people use them less. So it's a balancing act, is how much you can charge. If you go by and that pool is full, it tells me it's an amenity that the residents like and they will use it. And there are a lot of amenities that we provide that simply cost more than we can extract back. That's part of being government. So that balancing act is.
This time it just seems like it's a lot more than we.
I don't disagree with you
Yeah,
there.
it's gotten to the point where it's, and I think since we've switched stuff around, it's, yeah, so. No, but I agree, it should stay open, and we're gonna lose money on it, it's just a matter of trying to.
Try to minimize that, yeah.
We did a reduction of lifeguards as well. We were at 19 lifeguards. We're going to go down to 13 next year. I think some of the scheduling with our lifeguards is something that we need to look at too. We're hiring younger people, which most of the time your teenagers are your lifeguards. They can only work so many hours, and then they can only work for sports. They can only do this hour, that hour. So I think that's some of the place too where we need to look at a scheduling.
Well, it wasn't that many years ago, Mayor, that we were struggling to get lifeguards at any price.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All right, anybody else have any comments about the pool, questions? Come on, parks maintenance?
Budget is pretty much flat compared to the current year with $8,100 reduction. You see most of the reduction's gonna have to do with facility repairs. There were a number of projects that were included in the current year budget that we don't need to budget for next year. And then we have the equipment purchases are less. We did have, initially a Kubota tractor in this budget, and we moved it out into the capital projects. So there is a tractor out there for their
Can you
use.
talk about the pest control?
Yeah, so the pest control, we have someone on staff that is able to do that and has been doing that on top of the pest control contract that we already have. So he has that under control, and he's able to buy the chemicals for that at a cheaper price and be able to do it himself, and he's experienced in doing that. So he's been doing the pest control, one of our maintenance people.
Perfect.
So that's why we got rid of the contract.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Any other questions? Recreation.
Recreation department, the proposed budget is $193,000 less than the current year adopted. And that is mainly due to the soccer field grant project being in the current year budget, that's not in next year's budget. We don't have the budget for that, and there was a reduction on the revenue side as well, here And then we also, like in the library, what we've done in, this department, we've eliminated the recreation director, we eliminated that position. We've got, 50% of Barbara, the community services director, budgeted in here. And we've also eliminated a recreation aide position that was added in the current year budget, but it's not been filled all year, so we've eliminated that position.
Anybody have any questions about rec?
Just a quick one with the soccer field, it seemed like for years, we were getting a grant each year. Now are you saying that we have grant money that we just haven't completed expenditure on? Or
We
don't
get the, what is that, Gwen, you're gonna have to help me on that grant that we've been getting.
The community, North Lake.
Yeah.
Right,
Lake,
through the
Yeah.
county.
It's for the whole
grant through
complex.
the county.
Yeah.
I believe it's through the tourism at the county. I can look at it real quick.
We currently do not have that budgeted. I don't know what the status on that grant is for going into next year.
We amended it last year.
Yes.
Mhm.
For the new PA system, reconstruct softball and t-ball field at the park to include new clay irrigation and artificial turf. The county has included funds in the amount of $100,000 as part of its fiscal year budgeted infrastructure sales tax funds for improvement at the park.
So there's 100,000 left of that, and that's for that whole complex. So what we're doing on the other side of that is the softball field. So we're cleaning up those softball fields and getting, new turf, new clay, a PA system for the softball field. So we're in the process of that. The irrigation is now completed, and we're working on the clay right now.
Okay.
So we're in the process of that. It's hard to get 3 quotes for somebody to come out, so it's kind of holding us up a little bit, so.
And my other question, for several budget seasons, we've talked about a splash pad. Is that still on the drawing board, or is that on the back burner, or is that a dead issue?
I would say back burner at the moment. The way the plans had moved forward previously was putting the splash pad toward the back of that, behind the pool, back toward the skate park, which is not an ideal location for a splash pad. If we were to move forward with a splash pad, Barbara and I, Barbara's talking to her staff, and we've talked about, if we did move forward with a splash pad, it would make a lot more sense to have it up front, like where the pavilion area is currently. That would be a really good location for a splash pad. It's currently not in the budget, it's kind of been just out here in the background. But that would be something, if y'all want us to continue looking toward that, I would suggest let's look at moving it up toward the front of that property, then we could move the playground structure and those type of amenities over to the vacant lot that we have that has all of the trees that would be nice and shaded for kids to play on the playground and moms to sit around in the shade on the benches. So that's something that we've been bouncing around.
Well, there was a lot of discussion when we acquired a house last year, raised that, DPW's property at some point when that's, flat, additional parking, a splash pad, et cetera. I think those were all good ideas we kicked around for the last several years. I don't think we're in a position right now to be thinking about major expenditures, so back burner, I don't think I would, eliminate any of the discussion, but until we know, what kind of revenue sources we're going to have in the future, I would say back burner.
Any other questions? Thank you, Bob. General fund transfers,
Nothing there.
redevelopment revenues.
Talk a little bit about the revenues in the overview. We have revenues projected at 2.3 million, and then we have expenditures projected at 2.3 million. And just as a reminder, the Community Redevelopment Agency, that is money that is set aside from appraisal increases that are within the boundaries of the CRA. It can only be spent, the money can only be spent within the CRA and for specific types of expenditures, not just general expenditures. So included in expenditures, $2.3 million this year. have bumped up the abatement cost to, I believe we bumped it up to $10,000, since we're doing an emphasis now, a greater emphasis on code enforcement. Thought this way we would have money in there for any abatement that we might need to do. We have included 4 Fruitland Park signs, the Welcome to Fruitland Park signs, to refresh those signs, and then 1 new Welcome to Fruitland Park sign on 468. Doing resurfacing or paving within the CRA at $250,000. There's a $1.8 million in there for the utility work that will be necessary with the 466A expansion. And then, have some park improvements in there for $32,000 at Veterans Park, which will be fencing around the playground. I don't know if you've noticed, the playground is not very far from the water, and it doesn't have a fence around it, so we would like to put a fence to help moms keep the kids corralled and away from the water. And then resurfacing the basketball courts. Skate park is over, I have a skate park in here, $100,000 on that one to resurface, to replace equipment and resurface the park.
Is there any, I know it's not in this, but with, Olive, the park at Olive, there's some talk about redoing that at one point.
We have the money in this year's budget to do it. That my thought is we will encumber that money, i.e. we'll grab that money, create an encumbrance and roll it into next year, so it's not a part of the adopted budget since it was already approved this year. We are still talking about that. We're looking at some designs, on that park. We met with, the Bells. And actually, it was really neat. Barbara also had a young lady that's, what, 8 years old?
Yeah, so she's 8 years old, a citizen in the community who actually wrote me a letter, saying that she wanted to park in a different location. It just so happens we don't own that property. So I invited her to that meeting so she can see the process of how a park becomes a park. And so she had some great ideas. She
really
came with
good
ideas. It was really exciting to have her there and just hear her voice on what she wanted in a park.
Yeah, to hear a kid's perspective. It was neat, yeah. So yes, we are still moving forward with looking at getting that park redone.
And 1.8 million for the utility expansion for 466A. Do we think that that's still a solid number? Because this number has gone crazy in the years we've waited for that number.
Good question. Probably, I would could see it maybe going up some more. Maybe not to the degree it has in the past.
Yeah, currently, maybe a couple months ago, we sent it off to Half Engineering to give us a budget estimate on it, and that's what they came back with. So it's not a.
So this is 2 months old?
Yeah.
Estimate, okay. Well, let me do that around, the skate park improvements, that's a pretty new skate park. What are we improving over there?
That's me.
Not me, sorry.
Pass the buck,
So the skate park is very well used. It is packed all the time, much like Hull. If you go by the skate park, there's always kids at the skate park. The surface of that has gotten really gravelly and peeling, and so it really needs resurfaced to where the kids can't really even ride their skateboards on there anymore. So we've had a couple of local people, citizens that use it frequently, who have really been vocal on the emails of like, when can you fix this? We will help you, we will bring equipment, like they're really wanting to do it themselves. So some of the equipment also needs fixed. The skate park equipment is not something you can just work on. It's very balanced and specific to skaters, and so if you don't do it correctly, you could hurt somebody. There could be a lawsuit in that. So it really needs to be done by a company. We can't fix it. So there's a couple of broken things on there that we've had to take away so that no one gets hurt. And it just really needs upgrading. It's well used and it's showing its age. Yeah.
So we've been in contact with the company that.
We've had 2 companies that we've been in contact, waiting on a 3rd one, to see what they can do with the equipment there. And we do have the resurfacing company that can come in and resurface, and that's where we got the fees from, is we already reached out to see what that would cost to redo.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions, John?
No, I get
Any other questions?
No.
Capital project revenues.
Okay, we have budgeted $1.1 million in the capital projects from the, surtax for infrastructure, and then $60,000 for, budget for, interest income. And remember, these expenditures are also limited on how we can use the money. It has to be capital, a minimum age of 5 years, $5,000, last at least 5 years, and be capital improvement of some sort. In here, we currently have the replacement of the AC units here at City Hall. They're currently 20 years old. We did replace one this year. Was it this year?
One this year and one last year.
One last year. We're still having some pretty significant issues here at City Hall, so we've got the money included in there to replace those. We have 4 police department vehicles plus their build out. We have a ground penetrating radar for utility relocations, which would be very helpful because fairly regularly Rob has lines that are hit because they're not easy to locate, they're not well marked, and we're getting hit.
Yeah, so a lot of our older water utility infrastructure is not locatable. They didn't run wires with it. We have a locating machine, hook up to wire, we can locate. There's a lot of stuff in the city that doesn't have that. We currently, just recently had two water mains hit, during a project or doing some boring and stuff. And it was mostly because we didn't really, we have an idea where they're at, but to really locate them, they're 5 foot deep, you can't even hit them with a probe rod. You're ultimately guessing at some point. So something like that, basically what it does is scans, it's like a fish finder kind of, but you use on the ground, and you can locate utility pipes. Takes a little training to figure out how to use it.
We'll locate PVC and concrete.
Anything, yeah, PVC, concrete, any type of pipes on the ground, wires, stuff like that. So,
Very good.
you just really have to learn how to use it first. But, you know, like I said, with half the highway infrastructure up there, you can't even locate. When they redid the highway up there, there's some new sections you can, but most of it, you kind of have to find it by digging it up and, you know, when you get into projects that are doing down there, you think about it, if you get on Burton or something, get a 16-inch line, the cost of that versus being able to properly locate something, so.
Do we have accurate as-bills from the village construction?
I don't know that I have a copy of their plans, but I do not have any as-bills from their stuff. Well, all the utilities out there belong to them, so it's.
Right, but they go under the road.
Yeah, I do not. I have maps of their stuff, but it's not as-bills. So typically when I go out there and get calls about this and that, I'll check out those and.
So this radar's gonna come in handy everywhere.
Yeah. Like I said, we had 2 6-inch main breaks within about a week of each other, just because we had no way to locate other than, if you ever see me use a witching stick. I mean, I learned how to do that very well, actually. So this would help with that, and I also would like to start working on getting GIS mapping of our stuff. I actually bought a, transponder where I can, do some GPS mapping and stuff. But your GIS mapping is only as good as your locate of the utility, so,
Well, as long as you brought that up, would we contract to someone to run the GIS software and layer for us?
We could, actually looked into that a couple years ago. The cost is pretty extraordinary to get somebody to do it.
Pretty extraordinary to buy too.
Yeah. Basically, I was told that we would have to locate everything ourselves first, then they would come in, they would map everything out for us, and it was like $1.5 million. So.
We don't have to get it, are we?
So we're gonna get, hopefully train somebody ourselves to do it, so.
Yeah.
And that's
Does the
gonna
county
be.
run a GIS?
What's that?
Does Lee County run GIS?
They have some GIS mapping, yeah. So we can take what we do with the GPS, we could probably send that to half, I think they can convert it under the GIS mapping system, so. We actually, last year before, when we did the, asset management plans, I got introduced to, mapping software called Diamond Maps. It was actually funded by the state to get communities like ours to start getting into basic GPS mapping stuff, and very, very low cost, and I could actually do it all myself on that, and be able to provide that to the guys. It's just, it's a huge project, so, and it's gonna take some talent to do it right. So it's on my radar, but time and, personnel to do it would be the hardest part.
Well, as long as you're up there, how is it going with the, meter transfer?
I have 700 of them on site right now. I'm waiting for the guy to come down with the software. I can't really put them out there until we have everything set up here, so I'm waiting on him to come get all that set up. I have 700 of them on site. Still have some money. I'm gonna probably order a few more of them. And then next year, hoping I can maybe order the rest of them to get, I think I planned it for a 3-year project, so I'm trying to get it done quicker than that.
But you're at least on track.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, I got 700 transponders sitting in my shop right now, waiting to go in. So, like I said, we're just waiting, and the plan with that is we're gonna start going through different communities. I'll probably do the newer communities, the outlying Wingspreads, Glen, all the contained communities first. Do that, that'll pull them off of the meter routes, turn it into a drive-by route. And then once we get the entire city done, I'll have them put a tower up, and then at that point, we can pull reads right here from City Hall. Save a ton of time and manpower. So,
Thank you.
Don't go too far, Rob. You also have a small dump truck
oh, yes.
included in your budget.
Yeah, I put a small dump truck in there. The one we have, is about 20 something years old. It kind of took a nosedive on us, so we have a larger dump truck that we use, but it's hard to use in certain areas. When you're trying to get in on a water main break or something like that, or you're trying not to get off the road too much. We use it quite often. It's been a hindrance since it's blowing up on us, so I'm putting in for a new small dump truck.
Small.
Just like a 3/4 ton pickup with a dump body on it.
5 yard.
Probably about 5 yards. Similar to what we had, I'm not sure it's all the one we had before. But I'm gonna take the dump body that's on that one, and probably transfer it to one of our roads and streets trucks for them to use for tree lines and stuff like that. And then the truck will just go to the graveyard.
And then we've included the pavement overlay in the Myrtle Lake area for 200,000. We have a bucket truck.
Bucket truck, yes, so I'm looking at a used bucket truck, something that our current bucket truck, we can only get about 30 feet. So with 3 jobs, I pretty much have to hire a tree guy every time I get something done. Looking at used, it's obviously not gonna be a daily driver type thing, so something a couple years old, something with some life in it. Just put it to use.
And then we've included a used street sweeper.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so sell me on this, Rob.
What's that?
Sell me on this.
Well, so we pay for certain areas to get swept right now. If you drive around the community, obviously you'll see different parts of the roads. The older community does not have curbs anywhere. You get a lot of sand washed down into the roads. Looking to kind of take care of those areas as well. You get on Bourbon Street in particular, the old crossing thing, every couple months it's full of dirt down there. So looking for something to do that. I will keep probably the highway on contract just for safety reasons. I don't want our guys out there getting hit, on the highway, for liability reasons. So it would mostly be used for around town. When I did pricing on it, new ones, probably about $500,000. You can buy a very old one for about $60,000. The one that I budgeted for is probably maybe like a 5 or 6 year old truck, $175,000. So it would be used.
You've got budgeted for street sweeping $6K for this year.
What's that?
For street sweeping from Street Sweep of America or something, you have budgeted $6,000.
Yes, and that is for the highway, which we're required to do through our contract with the highway. And then we also do the villages once a year, pretty much the areas with the curbs and stuff. The villages gets done once a year. The main roads get done 4 times a year, and the highway gets done 4 times a year.
Okay, so you're talking $6K for $175,000 pieces.
I also looked into renting one, which would take, basically the cost of buying it plus maintenance on one. But for a
we're paying for now when we're contracting it out?
Yeah, cause nothing else in the city gets swept other than the highway and, you know, basically the curb roads out the villages.
Well, and I can speak to the villages, the older those streets get, the worse the top is, which means there's more debris, collecting in the gutters.
So you think it'll be used a lot more than,
If we bought one, yes, it would get used. If we wanted to, we could do a rental, like maybe do once or twice a year. If we wanted to go that route. Yeah, $175,000 for a used piece of equipment that is kind of a technical piece of equipment. We get a lot of years of rentals for the same price.
Well, how many streets do you actually sweep?
Just the highway and those,
What highway?
US 441.
So you sweep that highway?
Yeah, gets done about 4 times a year. It's actually required in our contract, so.
But do we get paid to do that?
We do get paid to take care of the highway. I don't know that probably the cost, probably what we put into the highway is a little more than what we actually get. That was done years ago, basically, because, the highway contract allows the grass to get about 18 inches, and I don't know, previous commission, you may have been involved with it, decided to get the highway contract. We actually had that raised pretty good percentage about a year ago, so.
I think that 441 was getting, they were mowing and it was getting so hot.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah.
We got like, you couldn't see over the highway.
And we said, let's just take it over ourselves and.
Yeah, so we go way above and beyond what the contract actually calls for, and, that's manpower for us.
Okay.
But we do have a contract sweeper that sweeps that.
Well, I promised myself I would do my best not to say this, but the villages doesn't require a lot of input from the city. One of the things that diminishes the aesthetics of the villages is, crappy streets. And while we don't have a lot of potholes or alligators, insofar as street depreciation, the curb and gutters are a mess. And the longer we wait to put a top on them, the worse they're going to look. So while this sounds expensive, I think it's part of owning a city in which you have curb and gutter. Now, it's less important, because normally you clean curb and gutters because it's part of your drainage system, which the village owns. So if that gets clogged up, it's easy for us to say that's their problem. But back to aesthetics, I guess I'll push for this, just because I think to do the villages on at least a quarterly basis would not be unreasonable.
And you'll do the old part of the city as well, everything else is.
Yeah, if we had a truck, we'd definitely do the little part of the city, yes. You drive around Mirror Lake, you'll see places where dirt washes out down the slopes and.
Well, and if it's washing into a drainage system, which we then have to take care of, it is important to keep that, system clean.
Rob, do you feel safe sending somebody up 50, 60 feet in the air with a chainsaw? We have guys that are really good at.
Yeah, I mean, we do it all the time right now anyway, yes, and, make them use all the proper safety equipment and stuff like that. It's a little higher for some guys are more willing to do it. One particular instance that I can tell you about is, last hurricane, the very first thing we came up to was a broken water main underneath a tree. Tried getting a tree guy to come out. We couldn't fix the water main because it's underneath the tree. We can't take the whole base of the tree out. Luckily, the tree contractor we had, he came out the morning of the hurricane, cut that tree down for us. So, but, in situations like that, it would be very beneficial. There's a lot of stuff that we can use. If it's just a broken limb that we can't reach, we have to call them out to come do it. I feel safe with it, yes, and,
I just know that that's a different profession and a different breed of people.
Oh, yeah. You don't tell me that. But yeah, I feel safe. The guy running the road and street stuff, he's really good. He's very cautious with stuff like that. I won't ever send anybody up there unsafe or somebody that doesn't feel safe.
Maybe
about those, the revenues are budgeted at $3 million. There's a 3% increase in water and sewer rates budgeted. And then on the expenditure side, for water, we're showing a reduction in expenditures for next year, proposed budget of just under 1.6 million, which is a 629,000 decrease from the current budget, but of course the majority of that is because of that contingency/reserve that was included in the budget for this year. You'll notice that we do have 300 something thousand, put back here. We have currently, my budget summary here. We have 375,000 in revenues over expenses, so that 375 would then be plugged into the contingency slash reserve. It would be, this 375 would then get that plugged back in, which would still be less budget than what we had in the current year.
When do we need to address the 3% increase in sewer and water?
To do the sewer and water, we do that, how did we do that last year? We have to do the ordinance for a rate increase.
I would have to look, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't
I mean, we have
remember
to do the ordinance,
I
but
don't remember when we did
when.
it last year, cause we had an increase that was included for this year as well. We can see what.
I'm just curious as to make your budget work, obviously you're anticipating that revenue increasing by 3%. So, again, just putting it on the radar as to when we need to address that. Just a side question with regard to utility impact fees, where are we with addressing impact fee adjustments?
We need to get back on that with the consultant. He needs information from us, and so now that we're getting at the end of the budget, we'll get back on that and get that moving forward.
Okay, and I said this probably months ago, at least for me, this is a priority. As we move forward, impact fees are gonna pay for our utility expansion. Utilities are gonna be expanded regardless. So if we're not prepared to pay for that because we have thought on getting the impact fees adjusted, shame on us. So wherever that is on your schedule, I would make that a high priority.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Any other questions on water?
And this does have the second year, that 3-year, meter reading upgrade, yeah. And then on sewer, same thing, budget being proposed is less than what is in the current year by a little under $500,000. A big chunk of that has to do with the fact we paid off loans. We paid off several loans this year, so our debt service has gone down substantially for next year. We have fewer sewer repairs that are needed, and we just don't have as much capital included in this proposed budget as we have this year.
Any other questions on the sewer? Any other questions in general? Anything else you wanna tell us, Karen?
No, nothing I'm talking about.
All right, nothing else?
Just a quick one to Karen, as you know, I spent a lot of years as a city manager, I've put together a lot of budgets, I want to congratulate Karen and the staff, you've done an admirable job with this. The test of any budget comes at the end, to marry that budget with actuals, through the audit. But a manager has to live with the budget that they present. And I asked Karen this, are you comfortable with this? And she said, yes, she is. I think it's well presented, well researched. She was also in a pickle because of software issues that she got dumped in the middle of. So congratulations to you and your staff for putting together a nice budget. Well done.
Good job. The department heads did a lot of the heavy lifting. It actually, from the department on the expense side, was a 0 zero-based budget because the department heads had to go in and create their own budget starting from scratch. And so that gives you an idea of how well thought out their budgets are. I mean, they put a lot of thought and effort and consideration into what they presented.
And I can appreciate that, but we all know that the buck stops at your desk. And you're responsible for it, and it's a big responsibility. And I think you've done a very nice job presenting this to us.
Thank you.
I agree.
Great. She's easy to
Yes,
follow.
absolutely.
We'd be lost without you.